Hi friends, this is the continuation of lecture on India's independence struggle, part 3, that is partition of Bengal to arrival of Mahatma Gandhi in Indian independence struggle. 1905 was an important year because Bengal presidency was divided on the basis of religion. East Bengal completely dominated by Muslims. Dhaka was declared as a headquarter. West Bengal was dominated by Hindus. Calcutta was declared as a headquarter. In 1906, Muslim League was founded. Prior to that, a group of Muslim delegates met Lord Curzon at Shimla. He encouraged Muslims to have a separate political organization. Nawab Salimullah was a forerunner in that process. He founded Muslim League in 1906, that is 30th December of 1906. Aga Khan was elected as a first president of Muslim League. This was the British policy of divide and rule was success because Hindus and Muslims were divided in the name of religion. Therefore, British government expected the freedom struggle of India could be weakened. Bengal was a hotbed of freedom struggle that time. Swadeshi movement was high. Balagangadhar Tilak was leading the Swadeshi movement all over India. The boycott of foreign goods like cloths, like even salt from Liverpool or cloth from Manchester were thrown away on the streets, cloths were burned. So Swadeshi movement was very aggressive. This is the period known as extremist era. Indian National Congress was dominated by extremists. So this extremist group led by Bala Gangadhar Tilak, Lala Lajpat Rai and Bipin Chandra Pal. They were known as Lal, Pal, Bal. Bala Gangadhar Tilak led the Swadeshi movement in Bombay Presidency. Bipin Chandra Pal was leading the movement in Bengal Presidency. Lala Lajpat Rai was leading the Swadeshi movement in Punjab. Punjab was undivided in those days. Now the East Punjab, both West Punjab. Currently, West Punjab is part of Pakistan. Bala Gangadhar Tilak was running two newspapers, Kesari and Maratha. Kesari was in Marathi language, Maratha was in English. This is the time, that is between 1905 to 1908, extremists were very aggressive. They were doing a boycott of foreign goods, agitations, demonstrations, which was popular among youth. So there was a division between moderates and extremists in the Indian National Congress. In 1906, in Calcutta Congress, Dadabhai Nauroji was elected as a president. He declared Swaraj is the goal of Indian National Congress. This declaration gave a way for split in Indian National Congress. Moderate leaders like Gokhale did not agree for the Swaraj. As we said earlier, the moderates believe in prayer and petitions. They were not into the aggressive struggle for the freedom of India. So 1907, Congress met in Surat. The division between moderates and extremists were become more wider. The extremists were trying to make Balaganga Tilak as a president, but moderates did not agree on that. Rashbihari Ghosh, he became a president in Surat Congress, but Congress became divided between two, that is extremists and moderates. Extremists left the Indian National Congress at Surat. So this is known as famous Surat split. The mood of youth in India become more favor to extremist groups, which reflected in 1908 Madras Congress. Moderates were leading the Indian National Congress but did not get popular among the people. Tilak declared, Swaraj is my birthright, I shall have it. This slogan became very popular all over India. In 1908, Balagangadhar Tilak was arrested and he sent to Mandalay prison, Burma. Now it's called Myanmar. At the same time, Lala Lajpat Rai also was arrested and he was also deported to Mandalay prison at Burma. Now it's called Myanmar. In 1909, Marley Minto reform was announced. To appease moderates, the British government brought these reforms as a form of act in 1909, in which the demand of moderates were accepted. The central legislature was expanded, that is up to 68 members, out of which 32 were English officers. Out of which 36 were English officers, 32 were elected representatives of Indians, out of which only 27 members were elected, 5 members, Indian members were nominated. In 27, British government declared 8 seats were reserved for Muslims. That was the demand of Muslim League. So once again, British government encouraged the dividing policy of dividing the population of India on the basis of Hindus and Muslims. Minto-Marley reform was disappointed the moderate wing of Indian National Congress, whereas Muslim League gained their reservation of electorates in central legislature. During this time, terrorist movements were also organized. In 1913, Ghadar Party was formed at San Francisco by Shogun Singh. Ghadar Party believed in armed struggle against British rule in India. Lal Haridayal, Gatar Singh, Bhai Parmanand were the important leaders. They were organizing armed struggle in India. They also believed in Pan Asia, that is, wherever British rule were there, so they want to organize a common armed struggle to overthrow the British imperialism. At the same time, the other extremist organization, terrorist organization also formed. For instance, Anushilan Samiti. Anushilan Samiti was started by Satish Chandra Ghosh in Bengal during 1900. This Samiti organized various gymnasiums in Bengal Presidency where the youths were trained handling lathis. They are also trained to attack British soldiers. Okay. Sarla Devi, Pramanath Mitra, or otherwise known as P. Mitra, were organizing Anushilan Samiti later days. Earlier, it was known as Bharat Anushilan Samiti, then it shortened Anushilan Samiti. Sarla Devi, later days, she organized Bharat Sri Mandal in Allahabad. Bharat Sri Mandal focused on women's education and women's reform. There are other organizations all over the India who are carrying out armed struggle against British. British were apprehensive about the armed struggle in India. For instance, in South, Bharat Mata Association was formed. It was carrying out assassination of judges, collectors. For instance, Tirunelveli collector Ash was assassinated by Vanchinathan in 1911. 1915, British government passed Defence Act of India, which is very important act. It gave a power to Indian government to arrest large crowd or otherwise mass detention without any trial. It also gave a power to court martial all the detention persons. At the same time, in 1915, Balaganga Tilak was released from Mandalay prison. Then he once again organized a Swadeshi movement, western part of India. In this time, Anni Besant was organizing a Home Rule League in south of India, that was in Madras. Then Anni Besant and Tilak jointly was working on Home Rule Leagues. This Home Rule League is nothing but, instead of depending on British government, they form a model village governments in each village of the India. The village people will go to the village government and solve the issues. So the demand for the British is to give self-rule, if not total independence, allow the Indians to participate in the governance and allow the Indians to rule their own territories. So home rule became a popular in all over the India. Balaganga Tilak and Anni Besant jointly were organizing these movements. In this way, Anni Besant became a president of Indian National Congress in 1917. In 1916, during Lucknow Congress, Indian National Congress leaders and Muslim League leaders met at Lucknow and made a pact called Lucknow Pact, in which Muslim League and Indian National Congress jointly struggled against British rule. In 1916, during Lucknow Congress, A.C. Majumdar was elected as a president of Indian National Congress. In 1914, World War I began, in which British government involved Indian army. Indian soldiers were fought in the World War I in the European theatre. Almost 10 lakhs soldiers were involved in the World War I. Indian National Congress did not agree on the government of India's policy that involving the Indian army in the First World War. This was disappointed the Indian National Congress. At the same time, Muslim League was also disappointed British policy on Turkey. So Caliphate rule of Turkey was thrown out. In this reason, both Muslim League and Indian National Congress jointly struggling against British rule. Muslims were completely supported the Indian National Congress, especially involving the Indian Army in World War I. A Khilafat movement was organized by Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali. There are two brothers of Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali organized a Khilafat movement which was supported by Indian National Congress. In 1917, Montagu, the then Secretary of State India in Britain, declared a statement which assured a comprehensive reform of Indian government, in which Indians would be allowed to participate in the administration of India. This was known as August Offer, because in the month of 1917, Montagu declared this statement. On this basis of the statement, in 1919, Montagu-Chelmsford reform was brought out. As I said earlier, Montagu was the Secretary of State for India in London. Lord Chelmsford was a Viceroy of India in Delhi. The 1919 Act introduced few changes in the Indian government. Diarchy was introduced. Diarchy is a system that is central and state, whereas the provinces will have a separate legislature to rule their own province. There will be a central legislature at Delhi. There also in central, there's a bicameral legislation also introduced, which means central legislature will have two houses. The state list, there will have two lists. One is reserved list and transfer lists. Reserved lists are defense, finance, which was controlled by Viceroy of India. The transfer lists like health, education, social welfare are administered by Indian ministers. Governor has a complete power on all the legislatures. Without Viceroy's approval, legislatures cannot pass any act, which means Viceroy was controlling completely the administration. At the same time, in 1917, Rowlatt Committee was formed to bring a separate act to control the freedom struggle. The famous Rowlatt Act 1919 has been implemented. This is the time in Punjab, the Congress leader like Saifuddin Kichlu was arrested. To oppose his arrest, people of Punjab gathered a place called Jallianwala Bagh. A police officer, General Tyre, ordered for a shooting of demonstrators, in which massive people were being killed in Jallianwala Bagh, which was called Jallianwala Bagh Massacre. That was the black mark in the British history. This is the time Mahatma Gandhi arrived in India from South Africa. This will be dealt with separate part. Thank you.